Hey there, I'm Scott Winfield, and welcome to Victorian Opera's web series Artists in Isolation. On this episode, we're delighted to be joined by a hugely talented rising star in the world of musical theatre, Elisa Colla. Elisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
In this global pandemic, you haven't had the easiest of experience. Where were you when the world started to lock down, and what happened?
I was in London with my husband, Zoe. We had just moved there. We moved there on the 21st of February. So we were only there for about 4 weeks when the world came crashing down for us, and we had to come back home. So we had basically packed up our entire life in Melbourne to move to London for a couple of years. So the last thing we were expecting was to pack up our new life in London so quickly and return home and return to not our own home, but my parents-in-law were staying with them. So it was quite a roller coaster of decision making during that time as well, of do we stay, do we come home, and what's going to be the safest option for us during this time.
It must have been extraordinarily challenging, and for everything to happen so quickly, for you literally to shift your life to a new country on the other side of the world a month before, to then arrive in a situation where that was no longer feasible.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't expect things to go so bad so quickly worldwide. We were very aware of the coronavirus situation in other parts of the world, in Italy, where my sister lives. But life was normal in the UK when we got there. But very quickly did things change over the next couple of weeks. But just within that last week of deciding whether we were going to stay or go, just every day huge things changed, and it just came to that point where we knew we couldn't be in London financially for a long period of time with zero work. So our safest option was to come back, but emotionally that was very difficult because things were going so well when we arrived, and I had just got a job, and then that got cancelled within 2 days of finding out I got the job. So it was a very emotional week, but we kind of didn't have another choice.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the situation in the UK now compared to in Australia, we did make the right decision in terms of safety and in terms of things just being better overall.
In view of so many great challenges, what's brought you peace, or what's eased some of that pain in recent times?
Well, we can't do our normal job. We can't perform. So for us, it was a matter of discovering or rediscovering other passions that we have and that we've maybe put to the side, thinking, we don't have time to do that, when really we've had so much time to do so many things. And for us, that was rediscovering our passion of cooking. I mean, we cook every day anyway, but actually doing something about that, which we wanted to do for a very long time, but didn't know what to do with it. So 2 weeks ago, I want to say, we launched our food blog, An Italian and a Greek, which was our wedding hashtag.
You representing the Italian.
Me representing the Italian and Zoe representing the Greek side. But also we want to include the other sides of our families, which for me is English and for Zoe is Indigenous Australian. So it's going to be a real combination of different family recipes, but also ingredients from each culture to be able to sort of combine them all into one, or to celebrate specific.
Having only started it a couple of weeks ago, I have to say you've already shared a huge number of really delicious looking recipes. So well done. I've been very enticed.
I know, my family message me every day because we're obviously not with them. They live in Sydney, and they've my mum and dad said we've written a list of everything you will make for us when you get up here. So yes.
What's at the top of the list at the moment?
My ricotta and limone pancakes.
Which look particularly good.
They're very nice. They're very fluffy, and they took me a few goes to get right. I'm very particular and a perfectionist, so I also, you know, we don't want to share a recipe that we're not 100% happy with either.
Of course.
So trial and error.
They look very, very fluffy.
They are. It's the secret of folding in the egg whites just at the very end.
Hot tip.
Yeah, hot tip. And my cookies, which I prepared earlier. So
Yeah, you're actually going to share the recipe for these cookies. So what are they?
They are salted chocolate chip tahini cookies.
So how did you come across the recipe? Is this an invention of your own?
This is not an invention of my own. This is I've invented this particular recipe from a base recipe from a cookbook called Feasting, and I've sort of taken the idea of these cookies, the main ingredient being tahini, but made them into a different version, my own version, and a version we can enjoy more often because I've substituted sugar, butter, and flour for other ingredients.
Walk us through the process.
It's very easy. It's the longest process of making these cookies is the refrigeration of the dough for 30 minutes, just so the tahini can set within the other ingredients.
Which is already fantastically fast.
Yeah, exactly. And all the ingredients go into a bowl, you mix it together, you let it set, you take it out, add the egg, add the baking soda and baking powder, and then you start roll it into the sesame seeds, flatten it down on the baking tray, bake for roughly 10 to 12 minutes, and they are done. And it makes about 18. Yeah. So there's been a lot of cookies.
More than enough.
More than enough. And especially because Zoe and I, it's just us at the moment, and there's 18 cookies sitting here. So
whatever will you do with them? Everyone watching this is going to be very, very envious of your household right now.
It always smells very good. But it's so funny because, you know, we're like challenge ourselves at what we're going to make the next night for dinner. It's like, oh, but we had this really amazing dish last night. How are we going to top that? But that's it. And we do love a simple tomato pasta with olives and, but it's always very, very simple. And that's the key to Mediterranean cooking, is the fact that there's hardly any ingredients used, and they celebrate each ingredient. You want to taste each ingredient in the dish. And, you know, it's very different to, I guess, the Western view on how pasta and pizza and other things are made. And it's actually the simplicity of it. And
honouring the ingredient itself.
And it's actually a lot more healthier than what we would see pasta in the Western world as well.
Doused in cream and lots of butter and oil.
Yes.
Yeah.
Butter and cheese and cream.
Yes.
Which is also delicious. Yeah. But food plays a huge part in both our lives, and we grew up around food. We grew up around Zoe, his dad, working in a fish shop. My nonna making pizza for the family every Saturday. So it's had a huge influence on us, and it's so wonderful to be able to combine that together now and create something with that and share it with people.
I'd love to ask you about growing up in Italy in a second, but firstly, based on the way that your descriptions are sort of beautifully written about each post that you share, and the photos are stunning in terms of how
Thank you.
Everything that you've put together, and there's clearly such love and consideration and sort of care and thoughtfulness behind it. What do you guys view as sort of the next step with this? Because it very much looks like it could make a fantastic and very interesting cookbook.
Well, that would be the ultimate goal, a cookbook eventually. Obviously, we just wanted to start first with a page on Instagram, really to gauge what kind of response it was going to get, and what posts work well, what people seem to be more interested in. People are really loving the stories, which is, for us, even better than them loving the food, because the stories are what mean so much more to us. And I think having those stories connected with a certain dish is something different, and not every food blogger or cookbook is about that. So ideally we'd like to then expand to a website blog and then offer like an e-recipe book where people can download, say 5 recipes for a certain amount. But for the moment, we're just, sort of sharing things for free, sharing stories for free, just to be able to get a nice response from people and get a good following, so we can, take it from there. But a cookbook would be a dream.
I'll be the first one to pick it up.
I'll give you a signed copy.
Thank you very much. I think one of the really lovely qualities of the blog itself is that it's quite, like you say, there is storytelling, but it is transportative, which I think particularly now when we all...
yes, absolutely.
We're all quite contained. It's so wonderful to read something and to be transported to, say, Italy, where you grew up.
Yeah, I think also for myself to revisit those memories during this time has been so wonderful. And even my sister, who lives in Italy, she just messaged me the other day saying, I'm loving these memories, even though she's living there right now.
Yes.
It's taking her back to her childhood and cooking with Nonna and living by the lake Garda there. I'm
so glad you mentioned the specific area that you grew up in, because I didn't know it existed. It's stunningly beautiful. It
is so beautiful. It's sort of like
extraordinary.
A fairy tale, really.
Yes.
So we were in the little village Torri del Veneco, which is on Lake Garda, and my nonni owned a toy shop in Verona, and they lived in the apartment above, but they eventually bought this lake house. So when we moved there, we stayed at the lake house, and I was so young. I was 3 years old, but when Nonna tells me stories or when I look at photos or home videos, I just remember so much about that time. And since then, I've been back twice, I want to say, to visit the house and to have a look around the lake. I took Zoe there for the first time last year, and he loved it so much. It was really special to be able to go, this is where I grew up. And
I confirm that your family still has the lake house?
They don't. They sold it to...
No.
I know. They sold it to a neighbour, a family friend or something. So it's still there. But when we visited it, it didn't seem to be occupied at that time.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm just...
Do you remember where the spare key was?
Yeah, I'm like, I will get that one day. That will be our lake house. So... My nonni moved to Australia in the late 90s to be with our family because, they're just, all the grandchildren are over here, so they wanted to come here, and it's a better life for them here too in a lot of senses, but Italy will always be home for me. Yeah.
What a magical childhood.
Yeah, it was. Just eating gelato and feeding the ducks and...
Am I right in thinking that your nonna was a performer as well?
No, so that's my English grandmother. That's my other side.
I see.
Yes, my Australian English side of the family, my mother's side. So she was a performer. She's in her 80s now, and she was just an incredible actress. Beautiful actress, and there's a lot of footage of her too because her father was a film editor, so he had a camera. So there's footage of my grandma performing in the 50s.
What inspiration did she have on your life? Because clearly you've followed the same route.
Huge inspiration. She took me to see my first musicals when I was a little girl, and every birthday.
Do you remember your first?
I think it was. I want to say it was Annie or The Sound of Music. I may have been like 11 or something, but every birthday or Christmas I knew what I was getting. I was getting a ticket to a show, and it was so special to sit in the audience with her. So she was a huge inspiration. She was also a bit of a singing teacher for me as well, growing up. So it's kind of come full circle now, where it's really, really special when she's in the audience watching me. I think we both never would have dreamed that would be how it eventuate, and she loved A Little Night Music. Absolutely loved it.
I wanted to ask, did she get a chance to see your start in A Little Night Music?
Her and Grandpa flew down from Sydney, and they saw it, and They just loved it, yeah.
I'm sure many viewers who, for anyone who saw you perform in Little Night Music, I'm sure they'll remember your performance very, very warmly. You were one of the many, many great highlights of that production. What did that experience represent for you?
Oh, it was so special for me. It was my first time working with Vic Opera, which sort of like, I'll always work with Vic Opera. It's just such a wonderful company, and just an incredible opportunity to work with that creative team and that cast. It was really a masterclass every day in rehearsals, working with Stuart directing us, and with a cast of such incredible talent and incredible careers, and people I've always admired for a long time. Some people I've worked with, and others I've just always wanted to work with. So it really was extremely special, and then to work on such a beautiful piece that show was, and such a fun role Anne was. The whole experience was, I'd do it all over again.
How do you relate to Anne? Because I think you really brought something to the material that there was so much likability and there was so much relatability in a character who could, if in the wrong hands, could read quite annoyingly.
Yes, you could so easily just be a brat on one note and very unlikable. And I remember Stuart saying to me on the first day, "You've got like probably the hardest character to play in that sense." And
no pressure. In a
I was like, cool, great, awesome. But I think I didn't really know I could bring so much of myself to that character until my parents saw opening night and said to me afterwards, "That was you when you were 4 years old." They just, like you're this little princess, not like a bratty princess, but, just this sweet little thing wanting to wear the pretty dresses, but just a dork at the same time in the humour. And I don't know, they were just like blown away that there was so much of myself as a little girl in that character, and I loved being able to bring out the humour. I think a lot of people think, "Oh, you're just a sweet soprano." And it's like, it was nice to be able to bring out the comedy and have that opportunity to play a soprano comedic role.
And can I say, you really did, and if anyone else who saw production will really know this, you brought out the humour in every single line.
Oh, thanks. But, it is also thanks to having a director who made it a safe place to make some bold choices in the rehearsal room, and, to encourage you in that way, and also to have such a great cast to play off that understood my humour. Like working opposite Verity, especially in some of our scenes, she just got it straight away, and it was really nice to have just such clever actors to bounce off, and for the comedy not just to go over their heads. Yeah.
Well, we're going to play a little extract from A Little Night Music just to give an example of a couple of those little lines that could be throwaway but landed every single night.
Memories.
It's quite a good body, isn't it?
Nothing wrong there.
Is it as good as yours?
Let me see. If I was a boy, would I prefer you or me? Tell me. You're a boy. Run, Petra, run. Answer it.
Oh dear, my hair. Oh, my everything.
It's a countess.
A countess?
Yes, very grand.
How thrilling. Who on earth can she be? Charlotte Olafson. It is, isn't it? Marta's big sister who married that magnificent Count something or other, and I was a flower girl at the wedding.
Unhappily without a time bomb in your lily-of-the-valley bouquet.
Oh, Charlotte, you always did say the most amusing things.
I still do. I frequently laugh myself to sleep contemplating my own future.
Petra, ice, lemonade, cookies.
Reflecting on the company of A Little Night Music, you, of course, as you know, were working with some legends of the Australian stage, but I wanted to quickly ask you about an earlier experience, which was working with Julie Andrews and being handpicked by her to be the understudy Eliza, and then the replacement Eliza for the final section of that run. What was that experience like for you too?
Oh, a dream come true. I mean, there's no really... I was speechless for a very long time, and especially getting that phone call to say, we want you to take over the role.
Was that from her directly, or...?
No, that was from one of the producers, but then the next morning I woke up at about 6 a.m, my phone beeped, and it was an email from Julie Andrews.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was like, this is spam. Like, can't be real. Like, as if... I think I printed it like 20 times because I'm like, if something ever happens to the iCloud, like I've got papers of it. And she was just, giving her praise and her thumbs up to say, I'm so happy that you'll be doing this for this period of time, and trust yourself, and it's a marathon, so be kind to yourself, be gentle. And she just sort of sent her wishes saying, I wish I could be there to see you do it. She was writing her second memoir at the time back in LA. But just the entire experience from, I guess, first auditioning in front of her to being cast as the understudy to then eventually taking over the role was, every single moment was, I wouldn't change it. It was such a once in a lifetime opportunity to work with someone like that, and just someone I've listened to sing my whole childhood and watched her movies and read her books, and for her to sing your praises is, yeah.
I think in a period where we, faced so much unexpected, there were so many unexpected challenges during this period and such an unknown in terms of the length of time ahead of us. I imagine memories like that would be so nourishing for you.
It is. It's nice to think back on those times and to remind yourself of the positives that have happened, and especially when we can't be working, we can't be performing, or we are scared of when we're going to be working next, because who knows when the theatres will reopen here in London. Just that reminder of, well, you've done good before. You've had these wonderful experiences. That's not the end, and just sort of to trust yourself that something will come. What's yours will happen. So it's been nice to reflect back on that, but at the same time, I don't like to dwell on those positive memories too much either, or the bad ones, because in times like this, it's helpful for me personally to remove myself from performing, from the industry, just to look after my mind, and to remember that it's not my only source of joy, and that there are so many other things in my life that bring me joy and happiness, and I can't just focus on performing as the only thing I've got, because I as we all are, we're so much more than just that.
We're all many, many things at once.
Yes. Yeah.
How are you keeping balance in your life at the moment?
The first week we got back to Australia was quite hard. It was we just wanted to cry every day. But we've just sort of managed to get a really good structure in our days, as much as we can have structure. We wake up and have our coffee together, and then we might do a yoga or a Pilates together. Then we'll go off into separate areas of the house and do our own thing for a while. We'll always come together to cook and to eat. We go for runs together or separately, and we always make sure to, I guess, be in contact with someone else during the day, like family or friends. And I think just having some sort of structure has really helped us. Otherwise, we wake up and go, I don't know what I'm doing with anything.
Elisa, for our last question, what is the first thing that you'll do after this time passes?
I'm going to hug everyone, and I think when this completely passes, ideally the first thing I'd love to do is start where we left off in London. Get back to London as soon as we can, and just start where we left off, and start that exciting life. Fingers crossed.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been lovely to chat, and please stay safe.
Thank you, you too. So wonderful to see you.
And see you. And I look forward to many, 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 many more stories and recipes on an Italian and a Greek.
Thanks, Scott.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.
For more chats with artists in isolation, you can follow Victorian Opera across social media or visit victorianopera.com.au. I'm Scott Winfield. Thanks for watching.